Well, why don't you look at somebody next to you, just give them like a firm handshake and say, nice to see you. Now look at somebody else, give them a high five and say, what's up? All right, just wanted to make sure you'd all touched each other before I did this. Now, how many of you wash your hands regularly? Now, if you just shook hands with someone, their hand's not in the air, that's scary. Okay, I'm glad most of you rose your hand. Some of you need to go wash after, because, yeah. Actually, this is really interesting. When we restock the bathrooms here, we noticed that the girls' bathroom runs out of soap and paper towels faster than the boys, so something's kind of scary there. Maybe you would think twice about high-fiving a guy around here. But so just thinking. Now, maybe you don't care too much about washing your hands, but I do think about this. When you go to a restaurant, right, and somebody cooks your food, if that person goes to the restroom, you want them to wash their hands before they go touch your food, right? I mean, that's just like gross, okay? It's like required by law. And there's a reason for that. Not only is it gross, but we all know about those little things called germs. In fact, have any of you had a stomach virus before? Okay. I had one a few weeks ago, and there's nothing like 3 o'clock in the morning grabbing a toilet, puking your guts out, okay? Y'all know that's just the worst. In fact, I was sick for 6 days. I was sick. It was horrible, horrible, horrible. And so because of that, if I'm talking to someone that's like, oh yeah, I threw up yesterday, I'm like, get away from me. You go away. Just go home. Don't even come. I don't want to be around you, because I know that virus, if it gets inside of me, it wrecks me, okay? I do not want that at all. And so I guard against that. I wash my hands. I stay away from people that I know are sick. And you want to protect, okay? Because I hate throwing up. It's awful, all right? And everybody hates throwing up though, so yeah, we have that in common. So we're talking about guarding, so you might protect, you wash your hands, you do that to protect, from sick and all that. But what about your heart? We're talking about guarding our heart, because a virus might get in you and you be sick for a few days. If you let your heart get sick, if you let your heart get messed up, it can affect your entire life. It can affect every single part of you. So we've been spending the last few weeks talking about how it is that we guard our heart and how that we can keep our heart from getting messed up, keep our heart from getting in a situation that hurts us. Now, if this is the fourth week, okay? So if you are this is your first one, I would recommend go YouTube.com/iHeartAmplify. You can catch up. They're all there, and it'll help you a lot. But we're just looking at basically this verse right here that says, above all else, guard your heart, for it is a wellspring of life. There's going to be a lot of things that you guard, a lot of things that you protect, but above all those other things, he says, you should guard your heart, because out of it flows your life. Everything comes out of your heart. Your relationships are going to be good or not based on your heart. You will have good friendships based on your heart. If your heart is wrong, you will not have good friendships. If your heart gets messed up, it affects everything. So you will either get married or not based on your heart. You will have a bad marriage or a good marriage someday based on your heart. You will have success in your school or in your work or whatever based on your heart. Your heart is huge, okay? It affects all of your life. Now, I was thinking about other things that I protect. So I would say I protect my marriage, okay? I'm married and I want to protect that. I don't want there to become harm to our relationship. So I protect it. There's a lot of things I do. For example, I will, try to make sure that I do sweet things, okay, so that she still likes me, okay? I mean, I'm not that's in question, but I want to do sweet things to, to keep her liking me. But there's other things, for example, I don't go eat on a date with another girl, right? Now, that seems obvious, but there are people that do stuff like that. They're having coffee, and then it turns into more and more, okay? So I have, things that I do to protect our relationship like that. But the most important thing I can do to protect my relationship with my wife is to guard my heart, right? I mean, all the other stuff I do is important, but if my heart gets messed up, our relationship's messed up. Can you imagine if I allowed anger and bitterness just to get up in my heart? What's that going to do to my relationship with my wife, right? What if I just allowed lust to get all up in my heart? What is that going to do to my relationship with her? Okay, so when I'm protecting my heart, I'm protecting that relationship. I'm protecting the very most important things that come in my life. So we want to guard our heart. We have to guard our heart. If we don't, it brings so much heartache in our life. And here's what Jesus had to say about it. So this is Solomon. He's the one that dropped this thing. And then later on, Jesus kind of expounds on our heart. And he says a lot about our heart, but this is one we've looked at every week. The good man brings good things out of the good stored up in his heart. And the evil man brings evil things out of the evil stored up in his heart. For out of the overflow of the heart, the mouth speaks. So he says that you can store good things in your heart and you'll see good come out. You can store the wrong things, evil things in your heart, and evil will come out. So here's the simple way of thinking of it. I like Skittles. I don't know if you do, particularly the red ones. So here's the thing. If I was to, pour this out or shake it and let them spill all over the stage like last week, the reason that Skittles come out is because there's Skittles in there. And we understand that there's Skittles in there, so Skittles come out. What is in comes out. And that is exactly what he's saying. What is in you comes out. And so if we store up good things come out. And this is especially important when we have those moments of, conflict in our life. Like when something comes along, and I'm so tempted to just hit this and see how bad it goes. Okay. Like, you go home and your sister's being really annoying, or and whatever the thing is, whatever it is that hit you, something hit you, and that was fun. Okay, and now in this case, okay, sweet came out, right? Like good came out, and that is sometimes the case with you, am I right? And other times, not sweet comes out. Should I just say it that way? Like gross comes out, and it's like stuff comes out of us that we don't like. In fact, you have probably had some time in your life when something came out, you said something, you did something, and I'm going to step on these. That popped a little harder than I expected. So when we have things come out of our hearts sometimes, out of our mouths sometimes, or we do something and you go, I cannot believe I did that. I cannot believe I said that. Because we allowed the wrong stuff to get in our heart. So we need to pay attention to what we are putting into our heart. Okay? Because someone is putting stuff in your heart. And are we putting in good or are we putting in bad? So we need to know what is going into our heart. So we've looked at a lot of different things. Basically what we did was we read that verse that said, guard your heart. And then we looked at the 4 verses that followed, where Solomon just gave us some more wisdom about our life. And what we discovered is all those things also help show us things that we can do to guard our heart. So we're going to look at the last one, and it's the end of that chapter, and it goes something like this. Do not turn to the right or to the left. Keep your foot from evil. All right, so I drew this line, okay? Y'all see, if you're on the back, you know, I can see it. I didn't draw it. I put tape, okay? And so I put this tape down to show a line. So if you can imagine that I have a path, which now has Skittles on it, but anyways, I have a path that I'm walking down, okay? And he says, don't turn to the right and don't turn to the left. Now, so if you imagine that this line, okay, is the direction that God wants me to go in my life. This is a life of faith. This is pursuing what he wants me to do. This might be obedience when it comes to his commands. Okay, so I am walking down this path, and what he says not to do is to turn off of that path. Now, sometimes you maybe have experienced a time when you turned, right? You made a decision, you started doing something, and you made a turn. Now, here's something that's really interesting about this, okay? Now, if I was going along and I made a big change, okay, and I took a step, and I started going in this direction. Now, you notice something? I am not very far from where I just was, am I? In fact, if I was to kind of look at my life, I would go, not much has really changed. In fact, this is definitely true if I'm going along and I just make like not a big change, but just a little tiny change, just a little, just beep, right? And then I take a step, and I feel like nothing's really changed in my life. Like I'm the same. But then I take another step and another step. And if I continue going down that path, what happens? I get further and further and further from the direction that I anticipated that I would go. Just from a little turn. And it's something that happens in our life, and it's what we call compromise, where we just make a little compromise, a little turn away from what God has directed us towards, what he has told us to do, towards his command. Just a little compromise, just a little step in a different direction. We turn to the right or we turn to the left, and we started stepping in another direction, and it's compromise. And compromise is so dangerous for your heart. It's so dangerous for your heart because here's what happens to your heart. See, I take a step this way, and guess what really usually happens? Whether it's sin or whether it's not sin, but it's some sort of compromise, usually there's no consequences right here. I feel the same, my life looks the same, and so my heart goes, it's really not that big a deal. And I take another step, and you know what? It didn't feel much different than that last step. And I take another, and in my heart believes I'm not doing anything I shouldn't do. I'm not really moving that far. I haven't really gotten that far off my path, and it's so dangerous to compromise so far. But here's the real danger of compromise. The danger of compromise is drift. It's that slow drift away from where we were going, and we don't even realize whether it's something that's happening in our heart or something that's actually happening. We don't even realize. Now, how many of you have had a sunburn this summer? Who's had a sunburn? Okay. Now, I had like the worst sunburn of my life when I was a junior in high school, and I'm not going to go into all the details. I'll just say I had blisters. The sunburn was so bad on my shoulders and all that. I mean, it was awful, awful, awful. And the tops of my feet were burned. Like wearing socks was horrible. Okay. Anyway, so it was really bad. And I remember after it happened, like I was at a water park. At the end of the day, my friend goes, "Dude, you are red." I was like, I didn't put on sunscreen. And then somebody else goes, "Why did you do that?" And I was like, "Well, I didn't do it on purpose." Like, it's not like an iron. Like, if you touched an iron or a curling iron or something, you go, and you stop, right? Because it hurts like that, and stop. But sunburn isn't like that. In fact, you never even know when the actual burn happened, right? Because it happened slow. Just a little bit, and just a little bit more, and a little bit more, and all of a sudden, the pain happens. And that is so much the way compromise works in your life. It's just a little bit more. You're not even noticing. Just a little bit more, a little bit more, a little more. And all of a sudden you're like, oh, this hurts. Why am I in this other place? I read a story about this lady. She was at the ocean. Some of you got to go to the ocean this summer. And the rest of you just looked at them on Instagram going, I hate you. But some of you went to the ocean. She was out on a raft. And she was just relaxing like with her family and stuff. And she just closed her eyes to relax for a little bit, okay? And so this is basically what happened. Now you're just sitting there and the water goes like this, right? And another wave. And another wave. And when she woke up, at first she couldn't even see the land. Okay, like she looked and couldn't find it. And then she found it. She had drifted so far. Now, luckily, a lifeguard had saw her drifting, called for like Coast Guard or some boat, and it came and found her and rescued her. Otherwise, she would have died at sea from drift, right? Like that is crazy to think, like just from... Now, here's the thing. Nobody gets a sunburn with blisters on purpose. Nobody drifts out to sea and dies. Right? Oh, luckily, she got rescued, okay? On purpose. It happens little at a time. A little bit of drift. And that a little bit of compromise, just a little bit of compromise leads to that drifting, and that drifting leads to taking you somewhere that you had never, ever, ever expected. The writer of Hebrews says it like this: we must pay very careful attention, therefore, to what we have heard, so that we do not drift away. Nobody goes to sleep following Jesus one night. They're in love with Jesus. They're worshiping. And I mean, they're that kind of person. If I said, "Who's the man?" Yeah, see, that was kind of lame. But yeah, anyways. Yeah, they're the kind of person that's like, "Yeah, Jesus." Okay, they're those, they're excited, worshiping and doing all that. Nobody is like that. Goes to sleep one night, wakes up in the morning and goes, I'm not a Christian anymore, right? That doesn't happen, okay? It's just not the way it works. Okay, what happens, though, is drift. And you do see people who are really close to God end up with no relationship with God. How? Drift. You don't see somebody who's committed to purity, pregnant in high school, in one day. It happens. It happens to really good people because of drift. They just a little compromise, just a little drift, just a little bit. And then you end up doing something that you never thought you would do. I was thinking about this during worship. It was not planned, so I'm just going to tell a story anyway. So I remember in college, okay, I was standing, had three of my professors, the three most important people in the music department, two head band directors and percussion teacher. And this one's like my mentor, who I respect with everything, and these guys are going to get me jobs. And one of them is cussing at me, and the other two are telling me they're going to try and take my scholarship away. And there's no way I'm getting a job. Now, this is not the situation that I pictured being my senior year, right? I had sucked up for 4 years to these guys, and now everything has changed, okay? And I remember, so what had happened was one of them had told me and another person, I actually told the whole band not to do something, and we did it anyways and got caught and got in trouble, right? Now, you're like, what did you do? I'll tell it another night. So here's what was really interesting to me. As I remember after the whole thing, I went back home and I'm like miserable because I'm laying there trying to figure out what to do. And this is what I thought: why did I do that? Because like I'm a person who always obeys, okay? Like maybe you're not, but like I was good, okay? I was a suck-up kid. I did, especially when I knew I was gonna get in trouble. But I mean, I just did what I like. I knew how to obey authority. I just respected authority, and I was sitting there. I was trying to think about it, and as I thought, why would I do that? I don't do that. Why would I do that? I got in that place that I never thought I would be, and then I realized I traced it all the way back. So. It started very early in that semester. We got a new band director, and I didn't really like him. And I just started complaining about what he did. Boop. Complaining is compromise. You're not supposed to complain. And I just complained, oh, he didn't know what he's doing with that. Oh, he did that wrong. Oh, he shouldn't have done it like that. And then it started from complaining to like talking bad about him. He's a moron, okay? He doesn't know what he's doing. He shouldn't even be working at a college. He's no good, da-da-da. And here I'm getting further and further until finally I had such low regard for him when he told us to do something. I said, we don't have to listen to him. And then I did, so the whole thing happened with just, who would have thought just saying, man, I don't like the way he did that, turned into that. And so compromise is huge. It will cause you to drift. In fact, the guy who wrote, guard your heart, compromised. It's amazing. Here he is. He tells us, don't do this. And then he did it, and it caused so much harm. You know, Solomon is his name. Solomon was that really wise guy. And I just want to read you something that happened in his life. It says, King Solomon, this is 1 Kings chapter 11. King Solomon, however, loved many foreign women besides Pharaoh's daughter. Now, let me tell you something. So it says this here. They were from the nations about which the Lord had told the Israelites, you must not intermarry with them because they will surely turn your hearts after their gods. So God had told the Israelites, his people, you cannot marry people from these other nations because they worship other gods and I don't want you to intermarry with people that aren't worshiping me. And so here he is, he's king, and Egypt must have had some good-looking princess. And he's like, okay, I like her. And he gets married to her. Now, in kind of this, that kind of does seem like a big thing. But so he marries this Egyptian princess, right? Which in a lot of ways was this. It was a compromise. And you know what? He took that one step and he probably thought, I'm good, right? No big deal. Nothing changed. I still love the Lord. I'm the king. I'm not going to change because of some Egyptian princess, And besides, she's really good looking, and we'll make this work, right? I don't know what he was thinking. Okay, so, and then it says, though, that he married many foreign women other than Pharaoh's daughter. Women from the Moabites, the Ammonites, the Edomites, the Sodomites, the Hittites. Essentially, he ended up with 700 wives, okay? Now, so like here he goes. He has 10 wives, right? And then he's like, this is still working. And he has 100 wives. Like at some point, like this is drifting, okay? This is a huge, huge thing. And I want to show you the verse that happens, okay? Here he goes. It says, as Solomon grew old, his wives, and check this out, turned his heart after other gods, and his heart was not fully devoted to the Lord, his God. And this resulted eventually in Israel, the whole kingdom, being split in half because of this. And so it started, though, with just a compromise. And what ended up happening, his heart turned. Have you ever wondered, how did my heart turn to this? How did I get here? It starts with just a little bit of compromise. We can't let compromise get into our heart. So let me ask you a couple questions. What would compromise look like in your faith? So if you are pursuing God and you're going after God, what does compromise look like for you in your relationship with God? What would be a turn? Now, I'll give you a couple things that I have seen, okay? And I want to explain them, so don't take them further than I'm saying, okay? So I've seen. Let me tell you things that I've seen take people out of their relationship with God. Someone is strong. I've seen them in all kinds of positions, okay? And here we go. So they're going along and they get a job. And jobs are good, okay? They're serving God. They're working, doing that. Then the boss says, hey, I need you to work this Wednesday night. And they're like, okay. Now, just a little step. Nothing really changed. Okay. In fact, they even came back the next week. But then it was this. It was like, oh, I need you to work again. And it was again. And then it was, I need you to work these 2 weeks. And then it was 2 weeks. And I've seen this, okay? Eventually, I never see him again. And it started with a Wednesday. Now, are you saying you should never miss Wednesday night for work? No, I'm not. I understand that life happens, but here's the thing. We got to look. In fact, I would go, if I missed one time, this is what I would tell my boss. Now, you understand, I'm missing this one time as a special favor, but I can never do this again. for $7.25 an hour or whatever you make now, okay? I'm not going to risk compromise. It's going to risk this, going to rip this apart because I can go get another job making minimum wage somewhere else. And so, I'm not going to let that happen. I've seen it happen with sports. See, when I've been doing this for 11 years, there are people who I knew and loved and prayed with and cried with at camp and done these things. People that I saw get healed, like physical healing in their body, like verifiable by a doctor healed. And I saw them. They were, instead of there, they ended up so far away, I don't even know that they have a relationship with God anymore. And I'm like, how? How did you get that? And it happened. One of them, it was a relationship that pulled them away. One of them, it was softball, okay, and that pulled her away. And it was one thing after another. And it was like, is missing a Wednesday, missing a Sunday to go to a game a big deal? No. In your grand scheme of your life, it might not even be compromised. That's just life, okay? But what happens is, you understand what I'm saying? You have to be aware. Okay, I've been gone for a month now. I am probably further away from God than I want to be, and we've got to start being aware of these things. And so what would it look, okay, what would be, if purity is you've decided to obey the Lord in that area, what would be compromise in that? What would be compromise in that? Where areas might you be allowing compromise in? We compromise in the things we listen to. We compromise in the things we look at. We've talked about that. We compromise maybe in somebody that we're allowing to speak into our life. Where are you compromising? Because compromise hurts us. It brings drift. We must pay careful attention. We looked at this just a second ago. Therefore, that what we have heard, so that we do not drift away. We need to think about our faith and what we've heard about God and what He's taught us, so that we don't drift away. There is another option other than drift. He says, therefore, submit to God, resist the devil, and he will flee from you. Draw near to God, and he will draw near to you. See, when we submit to His plan and living His life and committing to Him, we draw near. And we get closer and closer to Him, and we draw near, it's a continual thing. And yeah, we may make mistakes, but we're gonna submit and come back and draw near to Him, and that is what you can do. So essentially, it comes down to this right here. You compromise, and you drift away. You submit, and you draw near. As you submit to Him, you'll draw near. So you see, I talked to you about those that I've seen and that's why some of you think I overreact, right? You're like, oh my gosh, I missed 2 Wednesdays, and PG is like acting like I'm falling off the face of the earth, okay? No, here's the reason. It's not because I think that like you've given your life to the devil now, all right? It's like, oh, she's on the devil's path, okay? That's not what I'm doing, okay? It's because I hate it. Like, come on, I hate seeing people. They've walked so far, they find a cliff, okay? They've drifted so far, and then all of a sudden they're like, oh man, there's what could have been, and this is what is. I guess I'll deal with what is. And I hate it. And so what I want to encourage you to do is to make a big deal in your life out of this. Because all it takes is just to turn to the right or to the left, and we end up somewhere else. And it's why I may be texting you when I haven't seen you in a couple weeks, or hounding you, or you're like, whoa, where you been? I know that some of you hate it when I talk to you, but I just want to see things good for you, and I don't think that you're doing bad. I just don't want to see you somewhere bad. You know what I mean? Like, I don't want to see you get somewhere. And so this is the thing that I can't do. I can't identify for you where compromise is, but the Holy Spirit can. So I'm going to pray for you, and while I'm praying, I would like for you to just do this. Just say, Holy Spirit, is there somewhere in my life where I'm compromising? And then just listen. And if something comes into your heart, I think you should deal with it. And you just say, and like some of you, when I was talking, you already know. Like, he's already went, like you're like, okay? And some of you, it's already there. But just ask and see if he speaks to you. Maybe you don't hear anything, but maybe he'll speak to you later. So just ask him, is there somewhere I'm compromising? Father, I ask that you would reveal to us where we've allowed compromise, maybe where we've drifted. Lord, I pray for anyone who feels that they've drifted far from you, they would realize that they're never too far for your reach, that you can draw them back. Lord, as they submit, they will draw near to you. Lord, reveal anything in our hearts, anything in our lives where we've allowed ourselves to turn to the right or turn to the left away from your plan. I ask that you would help us to stay strong in you. In Jesus' name, amen.